Hi, this is Cheryl Gallant, your Conservative Member of Parliament for the Trekkie-filled riding of Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. Today's and Trudeau's latest cuts to the defence budget have resulted in the closure of a firing range at Garrison Petawawa. The Liberals don't see the importance in training soldiers on how to shoot. Instead of spending money on basics like training and equipment, the Liberals decided to use part of the defense budget as a funding vehicle for anti-military activists. While that might sound crazy, it's typical Liberal policy. The Heritage Department funds groups to attack our heritage. The Foreign Affairs Department funds groups that attack our sovereignty. And the Environment Department, well, you know what? Let's save that for later. This is just what living in Trudeau's post-nation state looks like. In a deep state situation, government departments act outside of political control to maintain their power and influence over the state. What we have here is a dumb state situation. That's when, regardless of political control, people who like to think of themselves as progressive fall for the latest fad coming out of academia. They just do not realize this nonsense is being pushed out by Marxists who want to replace our liberal democratic state with a socialist authoritarian state. That's how you end up with a military that gives money to anti-military activists, whose latest $32,000 report claims that space is racist and sexist. Apparently, the words exploration and final frontier are forms of colonialism. Those very same anti-military activists just wrote an op-ed in the Globe and Mail calling for Canada to break its promise to our friends and allies and not increase defense spending. They said Canada should use that money for more diplomacy. That's exactly what the Russian dictator and communists who control China want. They want us to sit around talking while they go off and invade their neighbors. Senior U.S. officials are increasingly concerned that the communists who control China are preparing to weaponize the moon as a means to control vast resources. The communities aren't wasting, or the communists aren't wasting their money writing reports questioning if space is racist. They're building rockets, missiles, and moon bases. The same government that pays people to tell it space is racist is planning to spend $2 billion to build a low Earth orbit satellite constellation to provide internet to remote and rural Canada. If that sounds a lot like Starlink, the internet satellite company started by Canadian citizen Elon Musk, that's because it's a copycat. The company Trudeau selected, Telesat, is owned by a U.S. hedge fund controlled by a friend of Trudeau's new advisor, Carbon Tax Carney. My colleague asked on the social media site X if Starlink could provide the same service, and Elon responded, yes, and at half the price. Trudeau is wasting $1 billion to help enrich his friends. Speaking of Trudeau helping his rich friends, just days after Trudeau announced that Mark Carney would be his new Liberal economic advisor, Brookfield, the company run by Carbon Tax Carney, is asking the Canadian government for $10 billion. Companies ask government for money all the time. The $2 billion for Telesat to build satellites will come out of general revenues. What Carbon Tax Carney is asking for is $10 billion from the Canada Pension Fund. Carney wants to create a new investment fund and use your savings to do it. It would act as an investment bank for the World Economic Forum to chase the next fad. And should the fund go bust, no one would ever be held accountable. Your money would just be gone. You'll own nothing, and Carney will be happy. Speaking of your hard-earned tax dollars disappearing into a black hole, one of the few remaining independent media outlets, Blacklock's, got its hands on an audit into Environment Canada's grants and contributions program. Blacklock's reports that, quote, auditors found errors and inconsistencies in paperwork, including incorrect information, erroneous information, missing information, incorrect terms and conditions, and project files that were missing entirely. Management was uncoordinated and inefficient, they said, end quote. This is very troubling. Since Trudeau came to power, handouts from Environment Canada have gone up by $625 million. This is the pattern we have seen time and time again with Trudeau. He wants to make a flashy announcement, 2 billion trees, plastic bans. They give the public service a pile of cash and demand it get out the door as fast as possible so they can get more photo ops with groups who get checks. The bureaucrats warn the government if they rush it, steps will have to be skipped. Steps like fraud verification. The government says full speed ahead, then the inevitable fraud happens. The government pretends to be surprised and blames the public service. What's even worse is this isn't just Environment Canada. Liberal cabinet ministers learned early on how easy it is to manipulate Trudeau. If they wanted more money for their department, they would make up a program that sounded like it had something to do with climate change, and Trudeau fell for it every time. Now there are 45 separate programs managed by 11 different departments, all basically doing the same thing. The environment really doesn't matter to them. For Liberals, all that matters is that they are seen to be spending your money. They don't care about the results because the photo op was the real policy all along. Live from Ottawa, this is Cheryl Gallant.